what it's like.
I suppose, Jamie, this kind of leads on to the question of whether there is anything redeemable in the man you play. You must have been relieved not to see too much dialogue in that first experience. But it's an incredibly eloquent tear that you shed. I mean, are we going to end up feeling sorry for this man?
That was a tricky time, trying to get that tear out. But it was a very technical shot. It was get the emotion. It was very tricky.
Was it real?
It was real, actually. It was real. Yes, thanks.
No, what were you thinking about?
God, we won't get into that. But yeah, it's hard to find any redeeming qualities in Spectre. But I feel that when playing him, the aspects of him that are commendable, and I'm saying that there's very few, but I do think there's an element of she shows traces of being a good father at times, particularly. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. Specifically in the first series, I do think he shows something close to love, particularly to Olivia, to his daughter. I do think that he approached his profession as a bereavement counsellor with professionalism, and we talked about this. I think he provided some good quality level of support to families who were in grief of losing someone. I mean, that's the genius of Allan's writing, is that this is someone who is very adept at taking life, and he is also relatively adept at helping people through losing someone. So they are as close to redeeming.
And he has lost someone. He's lost his mother.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and that is a big element of the way he is, of who he became. Yeah.
There's this dialogue in the second season between Stella and Jim Byrne, where Byrne describes him as Spectre as a monster, and Stella says no, he's a man. He's on a continuum with other men. And do you agree with that? It sounds like you don't see him entirely as a monster.
I think it'd be wrong to play him entirely as a monster. I think he's got to have one of the reasons that makes Spectre, I think, compelling, and certainly I've found him very alluring from the first moment I read the scripts in the first series 5 years ago, whatever it was, is that he is, there has to be relatable aspects to him. There's got to be aspects that other human beings can identify with to an extent, and you've got. I always felt that when I'm playing those moments with the children, I'm playing them as a father and nothing else, and there should be no undercurrent of menace or a psychopath in those moments, because they are. Why would there be? He's a father talking to his daughter. He's a father talking to his son, and he's a husband talking to his wife in the early parts of the first series. So I always thought to play him, I don't view him totally as monstrous, because I've always wanted to avoid that tag in my interpretation of portraying him.
So how method are you in preparation for this role? Do you lock yourself in a bathroom and think unclean thoughts for an hour before you go on to set?
No, God, I can always say the worst thing always comes to my mind when people present questions like that. No, I have never done that. But I no. Look, I mean, that whole term method is so. There's so many forms of it now. It's become this thing that this is one way to approach. But everyone, to an extent, every actor, I think, has a method of sorts, and they approach it a different way. You don't want to be too method in the layman's definition of method. I think most people think it's staying character all the time. I would never want to do for someone like Spectre. I don't think I would have a wife anymore. But I've especially 3 series in, 4.5 years in, I have ways of locking myself into his psyche quickly without having too much of a build-up for the most part, and that's just come over time and having an understanding of the character, I think. But no, I'm very much when I can, I jump out of his skin because I think that's appropriate.
There was a moment when we were in season 2, we were shooting in Spectre's lair, which is a really unpleasant environment, and it was with Val, who's here tonight, and she was playing Rose Stagg, and she was doing the stuff direct to camera, the defiant, well, the whole range of running the gamut of emotions that she was running through, including, and she was crying and shouting at the camera, and I was sitting by the monitor crying, watching her. Jamie was waiting to do his bit. I looked across at him. He had his head in his hands. He was so affected by what she was doing, and it came to the point where Val said, "Can I go again?" I said, "I can't actually watch you do it again. I promise you it's brilliant, but you can't do this to me again. I've written the damn stuff as well." And then Jamie did the bit where he turned the camera on himself, and he did it brilliantly, but it wasn't that he was identifying with Spectre in order to do that. Quite the reverse. He was in turmoil about it and felt the horror of it as much as anyone did. But when it came to acting that moment, he completely nailed it because he's a brilliant actor. And when we played the scene to Gillian, the editor cut those tapes together, and I said I didn't want Gillian to look at the tapes before she saw them, and so the scene where she watches the tapes and cries, we just put 2 cameras on her. It's 1 take. That was Gillian's response to watching the videos. So, I'm blessed to have just brilliantly, emotionally deep and empathetic, powerful actors to play in the moment. But actors get into the moment, and in the moment, they believe it completely and utterly, and that's what they do. That's what they're so fantastic at. And actually, as a writer, if you're writing and you're not crying at a moving scene, then you're probably not getting it right in some kind of way. So I sit at the monitor and cry a lot of the time. But I figure that I should be in tears at some of the stuff I've written. But so
Gillian,
Val was...
Have you cried, Gillian, during the process of this?
Of this series?
This series?
Oh, God. Yes, but I'm not going to talk about it.
No, nor should you.
I know. Yes.
I mean, that really
we learn more and more about the characters as this season goes on.
Do you fit into that character quite easily, Stella Gibson, quite quickly now? It's the 3rd season. Do you find it easy to put on that outfit and become her?
Yeah, I mean, even when we're doing wardrobe fittings in Selfridges, the minute those clothes get pulled off the rack and I put them on, I can come in my combat boots and my hair in a ponytail, and I put those clothes on and they're Stella.
Gillian, I think a lot of us would like to know at that moment when Tom Anderson asked, "Why did you go to the wounded Spectre before me in the woods?" And your character comes out with a very coherent reply. But are we to take that as at face value, or is there some kind of unhealthy fascination between Stella and the Spectre?
I don't think there's an unhealthy fascination. I think she's fascinated. She's obsessed with him and bringing him to justice, and the idea that he would get away with it, or that he'd get off easily by simply dying, I think is a quite difficult thing for her to grasp, that might be a possibility that's playing out in front of her. And so, she can see that Anderson is shot in the arm and is likely to survive. I think she has been around long enough to suss that out, but she ultimately wants to save his life so that he can stand trial.
I mean, it could be seen as a slight lack of compassion towards the man she just slept with.
A lack of compassion towards a man
she's quite tender with him, I think.
She's very tender with Anderson. I think she's deliberately tender with him and treats him gently. And we see more of that as the 3rd season goes on. But she absolutely makes the right decision. I mean, she has to save his life. She can't, the family has to have closure. He has to, for him to die there on the side of the road would be, beyond devastating for everybody.
It's always a learning curve as well, isn't it? For someone like Gibson, she's always trying to learn more about what makes someone like Spectre tick on the basis of it will make her a better detective, a better police officer in the future.
Well,
But-
she's clearly the best police officer
In the world.
In the world, possibly. Certainly in Northern Ireland.
She makes a few mistakes.
Are any of you going to own up to that? She has any flaws? Do you think?
She has lots of flaws.
Give me one.
Give you one. I don't think it's.
That's not intended. That wasn't intended.
No.
That's not even a thing, is it?
No, it's not a thing. I don't think it's necessarily a good decision for her to have slept with Anderson. I think she's made some strange, morally ambiguous decisions as a police officer, and there may be repercussions. I don't, she's lied. I find that fascinating. I think if she had ended up sleeping with Archie Punjabi's character, I think that probably would have been a mistake.
But she was from Croydon, so that wasn't going to happen. I'm from Croydon, you need to understand it. I'd met Jamie, and I knew he was from that part of the world, so I thought it'd be a really good idea to get him in. And so we brought him in, as you rightly say, for the part of Olsen, which I didn't think he was right for when I was watching him do it, but we put him on tape for that. But when I looked at him on tape, I thought he had something extraordinary on camera. And I was pretty convinced straight away that we'd found our Spectre. I said so to all my colleagues, the Gub and Neil and everyone I was working with at the time. And so the suggestion was, I know Stephen Wright said, well, look, you're going to need more than him auditioning for the wrong part to present to Ben Stevenson at the point where we suggest that this is our piece of casting. So we dragged Jamie back from LA, and jet lagged made him read for Spectre. I didn't need to do that, but it was felt that it should be done. And there was still debate going on because he hadn't done a massive amount, and there were other names being floating around, but I was absolutely convinced that we'd found our Spectre. And I got very vociferous about it, essentially saying if it's not Jamie, then we don't have anyone, we don't have a show. But I sent the audition tape to... I sent the tape to Gillian, said, I think we found our Spectre, and she emailed me back saying, hooray, we absolutely have. So that was a very useful part of my argument to get Jamie into
by
it.
this, I think.
I think I am flattered
It's it's just, I knew that whoever I cast was going to have to spend 50% of the screen time alongside Gillian Anderson, so I knew it had to be someone who the camera really liked and who had an emotional depth, an intelligence in their eyes, an emotional quality, and so I thought Jamie had all of that. But it was, we went into it, as you do into the beginning of a new drama, pretty unsure what we were putting together, and it's a voyage of discovery. Not now, because he knows who Spectre is and he plays Spectre, he is Spectre, so again, it's just like a natural fit. But it was just seeing him on camera. I've had this experience before. There have been people... I watched an audition tape of Michael Fassbender when he was up for something I was doing, and as soon as I saw him on camera, I said, this guy's got something really special. Who is this guy? Then I really liked it, and we cast him. But if you've got an experienced eye and you know what you're looking at in terms of acting, then like with Gillian seeing the tape of Jamie, you can look at people and go, yeah, they're really, really good. Sometimes you make mistakes, but drama often stands and falls on the nature of your casting, and the new casting for Series 3 is really exciting, and we brought in some fantastic people. One of them sitting here today, who is a stunning actress, not known primarily as an actress either, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, you just have to have an eye for what works on screen, and it comes from experience, I think, probably. And on stage too.
We were just discussing that, how insane the last 4.5 years have been, and actually the fall kind of marks, it's just been this omnipresent part of the last 4.5 years, where personally so much has changed and professionally so much has changed for me. Yes, I wasn't a father, hadn't killed anyone, wasn't a husband at the time, although we were engaged just before I got the part. It's funny that we see. I guess we see less of him as a father in this series, I'd say, and having children. It's like a reset button. I mean, you're a totally different human being. The fundamentals of your life are instantly altered overnight, all in the most positive way imaginable. I didn't have any of that to draw on with the father aspect in the first series, but there is nothing like love you feel for your children. But I really drew on my niece. I didn't even have a nephew at the time. But the love I had for her, because it was the closest thing, and it's the only child that I'd sort of spent, a decent amount of time with. And then it's easy enough to portray a husband. I think I'd been in a long relationship at that stage anyway, and it's just more of the same, isn't it?
When will you tell your children that you play Spectre? When are you going to break it to them? While they're all being born,
I'm not sure there's going to be some sort of ceremonious
the facts of life discussion.
Yeah,
luckily, it's going to be a long time in the future before he's going to sit them down and run the fall for them, I think, probably.
No, I know. I'll do some stuff that's more family friendly, probably.
A couple of Disney films lined up for the kids to watch. I think this is something that actors do talk about, isn't it? A lot of their work is not really for the consumption of their children.
Yeah.